Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and welcome to the mall at Short Hills here in Short Hills, New Jersey. I've been hinting at it with doing the 4 anchors here, which just felt like I've been doing this mall forever, but 4 anchors is just so uncommon and unique in itself. But in any event here, when it comes to the mall here, this is a beautiful Tallman Mall that is doing quite well. Simon still owns it. And to this day, as many of you know, Simon, they bought out Taubman, and they have ran this place really, really well. And I did enjoy this mall a lot. I mean, the architecture is a typical Taubman style, like some of the ones that I've been to in this channel have been included. Fair Oaks in Virginia has been Lake Forest and the Lakeside Mall. Those were of course sister malls, just to name a few. But this one, in particular, while I didn't have as much time to explore it as I would have liked, I will say that the time I did spend here was very enjoyable. The vibe was relatively positive overall. The people seemed nice. It had a nice, different variety of stores, and as I mentioned, 4 anchors, which in today's times is not very common to still have, 4 major anchors here. Because, of course, and many of your malls had stuff like Bon-Tons and Sears's and stuff like that have just continued to sit empty. But this place, I don't think any of their anchors are really in great danger. The only one that could be down the road is the Neiman Marcus, but that's because of their issues with the parent company. But onto the history of this place, the Mall of Short Hills. So the plans were in motion for this mall as soon as the 1960s, but before that, actually, a B. Altman and Company built their store on this land, and they added on 50,000 square feet later. But the bid demand and was in the 1960s, and that's when they built a open-air center, which was the initial concept of this mall. And when it opened, it included a Bonwit Teller, and then it also included smaller retailers such as FAO Schwarz, Pottery Barn, and Bentos. But then, a big Bloomingdale's ended up open up at this site. So that's right. And the Bloomingdale's that you guys saw me film a few videos ago, that was actually here when it was still an open-air center. It was even here and before the mall was actually here. And as I mentioned in that video, it was an original built Bloomingdale's. It was not anything else. And it was a massive store. But then in 1974, in Prudential Insurance Company of America, and they are a massive, insurance company that's still around to this day and doing well for itself, they partnered with the Taubman Company, which was the Mall at Short Hills owner of that time, and they officially enclosed the mall into what we see it as now, the Mall at Short Hills, in 1980. It cost over $100 million, which for that time was a lot of money. That's more than what some NFL stadiums cost back then. Just put it into perspective. And when it opened as a fully enclosed mall, it had 1,100,060 square feet. So that is a good sized mall. I think I mentioned before, any mall that's over 1 million square feet that is a large mall for itself. And it also added some new retailers at the time, which included a Godzilla, Chocolatiers, Black Star, and Forest, and the Limited. And then in 1981, a third anchor came to this mall, and Abraham and Straus came to this mall. So, they had a very unique lineup of some unique stores, not the typical stores that you now know of this. Instead of malls, they had different variety, and I think that was a really good idea. But the major expansion came into this mall in 1994. Well, the mid-90s in general, but 1994 was a big year because they added a brand new anchor, which was a Saks Fifth Avenue, and the Bloomingdale's, and was completely and remodeled and renovated. And then, into 1995, the Abraham and Straus became the Macy's store, like I mentioned in the previous video. And the next expansion phase was just a year later in 1995, and at that point you saw the last 2 major anchors built to this place, which was a Neiman Marcus and a Nordstrom. And like I mentioned, and you guys seen, that those are still here to this day. And they also added specialty stores in at that point. The only time this place has lost an anchor was when Saks Fifth Avenue ended up closing, and they moved to a larger store at the famous, or not famous per se, in the American Dream Mall. And for those of you who don't know about that place, that was a massive mall that they had the grand plans for right near the NFL stadium of the Giants and the Jets, and not too far from the Lions in New York City, but it never really panned out. It was a flop in the start. That 6th Avenue is now no longer open, and honestly, if you talk to some of their executives this day, they'd probably say that was a huge mistake, but at the time we had grand plans, and one of these times I do want to go to that American Dream Mall, because yes, it is still open, it's just not quite the scale that it once was, or thought of at the time. And then in the 2020s, Simon Property Group, they officially took over right after, the COVID lockdown of the mall from the Taubman Company, and as I mentioned, Simon knows what they're doing when it comes to their malls. When it comes to other things, and maybe not, but when it comes to malls, they know what they're doing, and I expect them to continue to run at this place, and they haven't made too many changes. Most of the original designs you see is from the 1990s, 4 and 95, and remodel, and I think overall it's a nice mix of common mall architecture, but then some unique features. My favorite part of that mall was that little fountain you're going to see me put the last shot of the video in, and that was right in front of the Macy's store, and I thought, I've seen many mall fountains over the years, and a lot of them look relatively similar. This was the first time I've ever seen one in that shape. I thought that was really, really cool. Now, it didn't have quite as many, when it comes to the glass ceiling parts that you see in the typical Taubman Mall, as well as it only had one set of the typical and Taubman elevators, but it still is a nice mall, and I have a good friend of mine who, this is one of his local malls, and I was really thankful that he actually took me here, and I got to experience his mall, and I do want to make a return visit here. I am going to be back in New Jersey in October, and there's a possibility I might make it back here then. If not, at some point I will make it back, as this is a real treat, and a mall that I expect to be here for a long time, and overall the state of New Jersey. Yes, I know they have some famous dead malls, like the Livingston Mall and the Hamilton Mall, but they still have a lot of thriving malls in New Jersey. I don't know what their secret is. I don't know if that's a big reason why, this place continues to do well. I don't know if it's the people in New Jersey or what it is, but they have a lot of thriving malls. They have way more thriving than they do dead. When you compare that to, back in my home area of the upstate New York and, even to Pennsylvania, you don't see that as much. But New Jersey, especially northern Jersey, seems to have a nice variety, and I envision me making many return visits to this area and just going to different malls. But there's enough blabbing for that. In any event, though, I'm going to sign off at a moment from you the rest of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed a look at the mall at Short Hills. And stay tuned for what I got next. I do have a few older videos I'm going to be putting up, a few urban explorations that I did at a few empty malls. Stay tuned for those, and I'm going to get right back into the series of this Maryland DC trip that I still have lots of videos from. I think I still have over 20 at this point, and I can't wait to put those all together for you guys. And then I have some more content coming up as well. I will be going down to Ross Park the next couple of weeks and going to that mall and that JCPenney and a few other things. But in all seriousness, though, I am going to sign off. I hope you guys enjoy the look at the mall at Short Hills here in Short Hills, New Jersey. For now, the rest of the video, Alex Weinsheimer's out. I will talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye, guys.